Hi, my name is Spencer Bonafiglio, and for this screencast, I decided to take a look at the sculpture of Laocoon and his sons. I chose this sculpture for no other reason than it was interesting when I first came across it. It has such a violent nature and so much detail within the sculpture, and it seems to tell an extremely interesting story. Going into the screencast, I had zero knowledge about this sculpture or the story behind it. It turns out that this sculpture holds significance in the story of the falling of Troy and the famous Trojan horse. The story goes that a man by the name of Sinon actually deceived the people of Troy. The horse was offered as a religious offering, but Laocoon was skeptical and disrespected this offering by kicking it. This is where some of the story begins to This is where some of the story begins to become a bit unclear. After this sign of disrespect, Laocoon and his sons were killed by a serpent. Supposedly, the serpent was sent by the gods because of the sign of disrespect he showed toward their offering. With the death of Laocoon and his sons occurring so closely after the sign of disrespect toward the offering, the Trojans had no choice but to accept the offering and bring it within their walls. The rest we know, as we've seen in many movies and history books. The horse was a ploy for the enemy troops to get it within the city walls and take the city. What we don't always see, and something I had never really thought of or heard of, was that the events prior to the fall of the city were orchestrated by Sinos to deceive the Greeks. So whether or not the gods really did play a role in striking down Laocoon and his sons, this is a story of an artful deception by one Sinos in an effort to win a war for his people. So like I said, this sculpture has a very interesting story behind it that we don't often hear. We always hear the version of the Trojan horse, but never those events I just discussed leading up to the actual taking of the city. Now, another interesting thing I came across while I was doing my research was the idea that the creator of this sculpture, Michelangelo, may have been a forgery. This is not something that has been proven, but there are many little clues that point to it being a very real possibility. One of these clues is that Michelangelo, especially in his early career, was known for making counterfeits. For example, the head of fawn, the bas relief, the Madonna of the Stars, or the Sleeping Cupid. Those are just a few of the counterfeits that we know of that were made by Michelangelo. Who knows how many there are that we don't know of, and who knows what ones those could be. Another clue is in the marble itself. Michelangelo paid 132 ducats for 2 shipments of marble that could very easily have matched the marble used within this sculpture. There's many little clues just like these two. The bottom line is that we cannot decipher whether the statue is in fact the original or a forgery made by Michelangelo. Whether a forgery or not, it doesn't really matter. The true importance of the statue is the history that takes place behind it, the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation, so that today we can know just what people went through in our past. I see this as a great example of a piece of art, a sculpture, that gives us a window into the culture of an ancient civilization that we don't otherwise know a whole lot about.